Hey, what up seekers? Welcome back to this third part of the series on Jung and Jewish Mysticism. In today's video, if you want to see the first two videos, click somewhere up here. Awesome. In today's video, we are going to talk about some quotes that Jung had to say about Kabbalah itself and see if we can make sense of what he said by them, because they are kind of enigmatic. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video where we have some really epic project news. We are launching... You're gonna have to wait till the end of the video to find out. Stick around, catch you on the other side. I have chosen 4 quotes for you, and we're gonna go through them one by one and read them and make sense of them and talk about them and hear back from you in the comments what you think about them, what you think of what I made about them. Sweet. Okay, number 1. So there was a woman by the name of Edith Schroeder who wrote to Jung asking him about what he thought of the impact and responsibility of Jewish thought and Jewish mysticism on the psychologies of Jung and his predecessor and teacher initially, Mr. Freud, Sigmund Freud, in case you don't know which Freud I'm speaking about. She asked specifically about, and I'll read you the quote, the significance of Freud's Jewish descent for the origin, content, and acceptance of psychoanalysis. And Jung responded that in order to fully comprehend and appreciate the origins of Freud's thought, one would have to, and I quote, one would have to take a deep plunge into the history of the Jewish mind. This would carry us beyond Jewish orthodoxy into the subterranean workings of Hasidism, and then into the intricacies of Kabbalah, which still remained unexplored psychologically. This happens to line up well with what Freud is reported to have said the first time he encountered Jewish mysticism, and I quote, "This is gold." Very millennial of Freud. Now, this statement is an interesting one because one may not expect to see so much similarity or influence from Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, and Hasidut on Freud's thought, Freud being quite a secular thinker. But it turns out that there actually may be a strong case here behind Jung's words. And if you want to get the full scope of this, I would recommend reading David Bakan's, Sigmund Freud and the Jewish mystical tradition, where he covers this in great length. Jung's assertion that the intricacies of Kabbalah and Hasidism, the subterranean workings of Judaism, remain unexplored psychologically is an interesting statement. And one may argue that in fact Hasidism does explore the psychological nuances and import and intricacies of Kabbalah, a process which, to be fair, scholars point out, does not begin with Hasidut itself, but Kabbalah begins to psychologize itself in its own literature, and Hasidut is not simply the psychologization of Kabbalah, although it is seen by some to be as so in popular conception. I do actually plan on talking about Jung's psychologization of Kabbalah and Hasidut, and if you hang into the series, we will get to that fascinating discussion. But I think for now that will suffice our comments on Jung's first quote about Kabbalah in relation to Freud, and let us move on to quote number 2. So Jung had quite a number of Jewish students, Jewish analysts, who were learning from him and working alongside him. One of his best-known Jewish students was a man by the name of Jung-Kirsch. Kirsch and Jung being Christian obviously, and Kirsch being Jewish, spoke quite a bit about their respective Christian and Jewish theologies. And in a letter from November 1952, in response to a question posed by Kirsch, Jung wrote the following: "I am rather certain that the spherotic tree contains the whole symbolism of a Jewish development parallel to the Christian idea. The characteristic difference is that God's incarnation is understood to be a historical fact in the Christian belief, while in the Jewish Gnosis, it is an entirely pleroma process, symbolized by the concentration of the supreme triad of Keter, Chachma, and Bina in the figure of Tiferet." Well, I think that quote speaks for itself and does not need any explaining. So let us move on to quote number 3. I kid. Let us explain what Jung just said. or at least try to. Let us first explain the terminology and language that Jung is using here, and then we can try and make sense of what his point and his distinction between Jewish and Christian theology is. So, firstly, the spherotic tree. Here is an image of the tree. The tree of the Sefirot is a configuration of 10 divine energies, modes of manifestation, creation, and expression. That is a very succinct description of what the Sefirot are. There is a lot more. I think I have recorded an hour-long class just trying to make sense of that one-line description, and I may upload it if you ask nicely. It is called a tree because it has its roots up in Keter, and it has its fruits down in Malchut, and just like a tree is organically related, and every part of the tree, the roots, the trunks, the branches, the leaves, are all in a process, in a symbiotic process of relationship, and dance of life with one another, so too these Sefirot have the energy, the sap flowing through them collectively to create the fruits of the tree. Now, the incarnation of God in Christian belief, I may not need to explain to a Western audience, but it is the idea of the person of Jesus who is seen in Christian belief to be one of the three persons of the triune Godhead in Christian belief, in which the divine incarnates itself into human affairs and human history for the sake of human salvation. Now, Jung was responding to a question here about whether there was a parallel in Jewish thought to the archetypal figure that Jesus played for Jung in Christian thought. And Jung responded by saying, yes, it is the figure of Tiferet, where Tiferet is the embodiment, the Sefirah of Tiferet here is the embodiment of the triad of Keter, Chachma, and Bina. However, the difference that Jung is identifying between the figure of Keter, as he understands it, and the figure of Jesus, as he understands it, is that the process of the embodiment of the upper three Sefirot in Tiferet, for Jung, happens entirely pleroma-tically, which simply means, it's a Gnostic term, which means in a celestial, in a heavenly, in a cosmological realm. It doesn't happen in instantiated, real human history for Jung. Jung would perhaps say that it is only when Tiferet unites with Malchus, as we spoke about in video number 1, which he himself experiences, is when that pleromatic, that heavenly, celestial manifestation and incarnation into Tiferet comes down and is united with this world here, perhaps into human history as he sees taking place in the core Christian idea of incarnation. If that whole discussion of the comparison of Jewish and Christian theology and the comparison of the figure of Jesus and the sphere of Tiferet was uncomfortable and weird for you, don't worry, it is weird. And Jung is a super creative thinker, and he's thinking across boundaries that many people would not dare to think across. And if you were disturbed, perturbed, or insulted by that comparison, pretend it never happened, and let's move along to quote number 3. About 2 years later in 1954, on the 17th of February, Jung wrote a letter to a certain Reverend Erastus Evans, wherein Jung describes his excitement of first encountering the Lurianic Kabbalistic ideas of Shirat ha-Kelim and their corresponding idea of Tikkun Olam. If you are not clear on what these ideas are, make sure to go back and check out video number 2, where we give a brief explanation of what these concepts mean. And Jung writes thusly, in a tract of the Lurianic Kabbalah, the remarkable idea is developed that man is destined to become God's helper in the attempt to restore the vessels which were broken when God thought to create a world. Only a few weeks ago, I came across this impressive doctrine which gives meaning to man's status exalted by the incarnation. I am glad that I can quote at least one voice in favor of my rather involuntary manifesto. I'm going to read a second quote here, which is related to the first one before we explain both of them together. Is that okay? Cool. Also from 1954, following his discovery of Lurianic Kabbalah, which Jung was very excited by, but also essentially following his recent completion of his major work, Mysterium Coniunctionis, which did not afford him the ability to fully include these Lurianic ideas into this mega work, which we spoke about in last week's video, if you were paying attention. Jung wrote a letter to the same Jung-Kirsch that we spoke about earlier, about this Kabbalistic insight that humanity plays a role co-partnering with God to fix creation and to fix what went wrong, what shattered in the process of creating the world. And Jung writes this: the Jew has the advantage of having long anticipated the development of consciousness in his own spiritual history. By this I mean the Lurianic stage of Kabbalah, the breaking of the vessels, and man's help in restoring them. Here the thought emerges for the first time, that man must help God to repair the damage wrought by creation. For the first time, man's cosmic responsibility is acknowledged. Jung, so it seems, was deeply struck by the radical notion espoused by Lurianic Kabbalah, that humanity does not just depend upon God for its own creation, redemption, and salvation, but that God, so to speak, depends upon humanity as well to play their part in creating and redeeming God, to complete the circle. From the Kabbalist point of view, and this is a radical notion, it is not just God that creates the human, it is the human that is also involved in the act of constantly creating God. Humanity, in the divine image, with free choice, with corporeality, is the only place in the cosmos, according to Kabbalah, where the manifestation of God in real reality takes place and finally manifests. And it is only in the human where God as abstract becomes materialized and corporealized. This is a crazy idea, and we're going to have to do a full exposition of what this means for the Kabbalists and what this means for Hasidic thinkers and other mystical traditions. But suffice it to say that Jung was aware of this notion, and that's pretty cool. I was up north this week in the holy city of Tzfat, and I recorded a little something special for you while I was up there. Check it out. Transition. I'm glad I can quote at least one voice in favor of my rather involuntary manifesto. That one man, which Jung is referring to, lies buried right here. The Holy Arizal, the father of Lurianic Kabbalah. The Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria. May his memory be a blessing. Okay, that concludes the official part of the video. I now have something very, very cool to share with you that happened to me this week, which was so incredibly epic, and I am lost for words. I really don't know how to express my gratitude and appreciation and shock about what happened. I got a little notification on my phone that said, you have a Patreon on Patreon who is donating to you on a monthly recurring basis. And I was like, who is donating to me? My project that started in my bedroom. Why would anyone want to donate their hard-earned money to this? That is just absolutely crazy. And then I opened up the Patreon and I saw that it was not just the first person who had decided that this was a worthwhile project to support, but it was the second person, in fact. And in the meantime, before this video got made, the third person signed on, which is absolutely mind-boggling, and I am deeply grateful to Little Hobbitus, Adam, and Alexandria for being the first 3 Patreons to get behind Seekers of Unity. It is so exciting, and in my mind, I'm like, wow, this has now gone from a backyard bedroom project to something that's real and people are actually willing to give money to. And it's actually got me thinking a lot differently about the project and about the channel and about the potential directions. I'm absolutely not looking to make money on this project. That is not my intention. But with the added value and support and vote of confidence, we can definitely upgrade the production quality. The first thing we're going to do is get some better equipment to be filming on. I'm literally just filming on my phone here, as you can see. Woo-oo. And more excitingly, once we get some better gear, we're not going to keep it to ourselves, because there is no me and I and mine in the mind of the mystics. But we're going to make the equipment available to anyone located here in Jerusalem, and we're going to set up a Seekers studio. I thought of that name myself. What do you think of that? It's going to be open to any Jew, Muslim, Christian in this holy city, or anyone from any faith or no faith at all. In fact, Jerusalem, a city which means in Hebrew Ir Shalem, the city of wholeness, the city of peace, unfortunately is a city which today is very divided and broken. And we don't like dividedness and brokenness. We like unity, right? We're seekers of unity. So we're going to get people to come in from all faiths, from all backgrounds, into the studio, make it available for free for them to come in to use this equipment, which you guys have sponsored and donated, for them to make any content that is going to promote, to share, to explore, to teach about, to think about, to talk about unity, love, peace. You know, just all the good things that we do here at the channel. And I think it'll be a really cool way for people to have an opportunity to share high quality production content for free, and also to meet other people who are creating that they may have not had a chance to meet. I would love if a Israeli Christian and an Israeli Muslim would rock up together and get to talk about what projects they're working on and get to collaborate. And I think there could be some very cool space there that we could create a Seeker studio for a Seeker society, for a reunited Jerusalem. And we will hopefully see the fulfillment of the prophecy, Ki mitzion tete Torah udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, that from Zion will come forth teaching, and the word of the Lord, the word of unity, the word of love, the word of peace from Jerusalem. All thanks to your little donations. How epic. It's totally doable. It's actually totally doable. I'm psyched. Also, something really cool has been happening this week where I've been in touch with a lot of the audience, people that really want to get involved in the project, people that want to be contributing thought and information and setting up their own little Seekers meetups and panels and making content back in their own hometowns around the world. That is really crazy and really blowing my mind, and something which I'm really excited about. I really don't think that this project is about me, about what I have to share, what I have to teach. I think it's just about creating a space for you amazing people to come in and to share your wisdom and to share your connections and to build those networks, to build those communities, because that is how real change happens. It happens with communities, with relationship, with ideas being shared across boundaries, across borders. Get involved in the project, reach out, tell me what you have to share towards a project of unity, because we can live in a unified world if we so desire. It is available at the tips of our fingers. You can find us anywhere. Thank God I have a great friend who is doing all of our social media for us. We are on Instagram and Twitter and Reddit and Facebook and podcast and all of the above. Thank you, Alyssa. You are priceless. And go onto those platforms, give us a follow. It does help to create the momentum. And DM me, talk to me, reach out. We're going to be interviewing you people, bringing you, because we are creating a family, we are creating a community. We are seekers of unity. Let the revolution begin. Love you. Keep seeking.